Hello, good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are, and welcome to the Digital Empowerment Project, Module 2 on live streaming events, tours, and programs. This topic has become very important in this past year, so we're delighted to have you with us today. The Digital Empowerment Project is a nationwide initiative organized by the 6 U.S. regional museum associations dedicated to providing free, self-paced training resources focused on digital media and technology for small museums. This series of online webinars and toolkits is made possible by funding from the Institute of Museum and Library Services. My name is Dan Yeager, and I'm the Executive Director of the New England Museum Association. My pronouns are in the he series, and I'm a white male with gray hair pulled back and a close-cropped beard. Today I'm wearing round, dark-rimmed eyeglasses, a blue shirt, and I'm sitting at my desk in my office. Before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge the places in which we gather. In this era of virtual meetings, when digital spaces may substitute our physical sense of place, it's important to reflect on the land we each occupy and honor the indigenous people who have called it home. I'm speaking to you from the NEMA office in Arlington, Massachusetts, the historical homelands of the Massachusetts and Pawtucket peoples. Wherever we are, let us acknowledge all indigenous nations as living communities, their elders both past and present, as well as future generations. We, the Digital Empowerment Project team, recognize that our organizations and those of our members were founded within a colonizing society that perpetuated the exclusions and erasures of many Native peoples throughout New England and beyond. So we ask you to reflect on the place where you reside and work, and to respect the diversity of cultures and experiences that form the richness of our world and our profession. Thank you. And now for just a few housekeeping notes before we introduce today's presenter. First, the best place to view this session is in real time on the Museum Learning Hub website under the Watch Live tab at museum-hub.org. Here you'll be able to see all the captioning, chat, and questions posed by attendees. I'd also like to acknowledge today's ASL interpreter, who will be on the left side of your screen, and let you know also that the captioning for today's program is embedded in the box just below the YouTube player on our website with controls to adjust your experience. Following today's program, we ask that you complete a short survey to give us feedback. We'll drop a link to the survey into the chat stream, and we'll email a link to those of you who pre-registered. We'd greatly appreciate it if you'd share your experience with us and help us improve our work. We encourage you to pose questions to our presenter, which will be addressed at the end of the program after the presentation. Please type your questions into the chat. We'll get to as many questions as time allows. However, we may not be able to address all the questions during the live session, or other questions that may arise after reflecting on the program. For this reason, we've set up an online community forum for raising questions, posting answers, and connecting with your fellow museum practitioners on the Museum Learning Hub website, which you can find, again, at museum-hub.org. If you're looking for help between programs, please visit this forum, create a login, and post your questions. A member of the community or one of our student technology fellows will get back to you. Finally, to stay connected with us and be aware of future programs, please follow us on social media. Links will be posted in the chat. And now it's my pleasure to introduce the speaker for today's technical workshop, Live Streaming with Multi-Source Content, David London, Chief Experience Officer of the Peale Center in Baltimore, Maryland. David presented the first technical session in this module a few weeks ago, which I hope you attended, so we're very happy to have him back again. David is a curator, storyteller, magician, and producer who's spent more than 15 years creating theatrical and interactive experiences designed to spark the imagination and inspire new ways to see and engage with the world around us. After discovering that he was a magician at 7 years old, he's built his career utilizing magic to tell stories and explore ideas. He's created 10 original theatrical magic productions and regularly presents talks and workshops on both magic and the show business across the country. We're so grateful to David for offering us his expertise to us once again today. Please join me in welcoming David London. David?
Thank you, Dan, and hi, everyone. Thank you for joining me again. It's a pleasure to be here with you all. As Dan mentioned, my name is David London. I'm the Chief Experience Officer at the Peale, located in Baltimore. And although we are a startup museum, we are very fortunate to be located in the oldest museum building in America, opened in 1814 by Rembrandt Peale. Today, we consider ourselves a center for Baltimore stories, but we also consider ourselves a museum laboratory. And so it is with that in mind that we get to experiment with a lot of new technologies, many or some of which I will be sharing with you today. As a quick overview of what we went over in the last sessions, in session one, I talked about some of the available technologies, specifically Zoom and Streamyard, that you could use to present live events. We covered accessibility, including ASL interpretation and captions, and the hybrid model of broadcasting to our individual museum websites in a similar fashion that you are viewing today's presentation. In session two, Alex Freeman from the Texas Association of Museums talked about tools for adding audience participation to your live stream events. And today, as Dan mentioned, we'll be focusing on using multi-source content to create more dynamic, professional, and exciting presentations for people to view. The one bit of feedback I got after the last presentation is that I talked too fast, so I'm going to do my absolute best to slow down, although I have just as much to cover in the same amount of time. But it is my hope that if I'm able to achieve that, I will have even more time than I did in the first session for questions. A quick overview of what I will be discussing today. We'll be talking about different content types when we talk about multi-source content, so the different types of content that we might be referring to. We'll be talking about the management of that content and the use of various platforms to manage that content. And all of the information I'll be sharing today is relevant to the production of any type of virtual event, be it a talk or panel discussion, a presentation, a performance, a gala, a film screening. Although today I'm going to focus my examples by talking about presenting virtual tours. Now, I think up front, it's important to confess that I didn't know any of what I'm going to share with you today just 15 months ago. So all of this is new to me, and I've learned it because I had to, trial by fire, since the start of the pandemic. And it's been a lot of learning and researching and experimenting to lead us to what we believe works absolutely best for us. But that comes with the note that this could all change tomorrow. And over the last 15 months, what I've realized is that because there's so much content available to us, a lot of cell phone videos, news clips, all sorts of content of all varying quality, that we have come to accept a rather low quality of video as a standard, and we don't really question it. And so what I hope today is to talk about some tools that will allow you to increase your production values, and increasing those production values just a little bit can really allow you to stand out from the pack. If you could share my red presentation, please, that would be great. And that should be popping up here on the screen. Here's a list of familiar types of live virtual content. Let's go back to here. A list of familiar types of live virtual content. And so this would not necessarily be pre-existing content, but content that we discussed in the first and second session. So those could be the introductions or the land acknowledgement or the housekeeping or tech instructions like you just heard from Dan, live speakers or presenters or performers such as me, myself, a live Q&A such as we will get to at the end of this presentation, slideshows, video clips, and the ASL interpretation, all of which you're seeing now, and all of which is being shared live. In the first session, we talked about how to easily incorporate those into Zoom and Streamyard, and many of you are familiar with seeing or presenting or sharing those things utilizing Zoom. And today what we're going to focus on is how to add layers to these presentations, incorporating pre-existing and pre-recorded content. And as I said, with these layers, you will be able to create more robust, dynamic, and professional online experiences. Now, when I refer to pre-existing content, what I'm referring to is anything that is not live, existing media that can be shared during your virtual event. One way to incorporate this is to do what I'm doing today. I have edited together 2 short videos, one of which you are now seeing, and I'm talking over it. So I have a silent video, but here I am live talking over it. This would require you to edit your content into a single or multiple video pieces. And although this takes extra time, in some cases, such as today when I'm dealing with a lot of different elements, it can be the easiest way to handle a presentation while still maintaining a live feel, but having total control over what's on the screen. What you're seeing right now is an example of the pre-existing content that we use, which is a video slideshow of the Peale building throughout its 200 plus year history. And this is an example of what we would use prior to the start of a presentation. So this would be for guests who log in early. It just gets them into the pattern of being excited about the Peale and its incredible history. The slideshow you just saw, I created in PowerPoint and I exported it in a video file, so I didn't even need video editing software. Now, by playing a video like I am, I also had the ability to pause, as I've done right now, or to rewind, as you saw me do at the beginning. And the black screen you're seeing right now is actually built into the video, but I just have it paused and it's waiting for me to hit play, which I will do right now. Now, I mentioned the welcome video, what people might see as they arrive. This is something similar to what you saw when you logged in just a few minutes early today. You'll see that I have the event image up, and across the bottom is a ticker that says the presentation will start at 2 p.m. Other examples of pre-existing content you might use are photos such as you're seeing now, short film clips such as you're seeing here, or even a pre-recorded video of presentations or performances. This is a performance that I do for the Jewish Museum of Maryland about Harry Houdini. Now, if you're worried about how to pre-record video content, it's really great to remember that Zoom or Streamyard or even just your webcam can be used to record the video that can then become your pre-existing content that you will share during the presentation. We'll talk about this much more in just a bit, but other types of content that you may be able to share during a virtual tour or other presentation is pieces from a 3D tour, such as you are seeing here. You can also utilize full pre-existing content. This is an example. We partnered with the Baltimore National Heritage Area. They delivered us a full presentation and we rebroadcast that. I share that also with a note that I think the ability to share content is something that we should all explore as museums, as we're generating content that may also be beneficial to our museum partners, such as like those of you who are here with us today. Now, there are 4 main types of virtual live events that, to simplify matters, that I've come up with. There is all live, meaning that there is nothing that is pre-recorded. There is all pre-recorded, meaning that there is nothing that is live. There's pre-recorded video with a live voiceover, such as you are seeing today. And then there can be a hybrid of any of the above, which truthfully is much more like you're seeing today. We will go live at the end for the Q&A, but currently you're viewing a pre-recorded video with live voiceover. As I mentioned, I'm going to focus today on virtual tours, and I'm going to talk about a lot of tour assets that you may not have, but I want to start with an overview of simple tour assets. And I want to start that with a comment that even though you might not have some of the assets that I will be sharing in just a moment, you can start if you just have images such as we are seeing here. And we'll talk about how to manage your images, but just a live tour utilizing various pictures that you have can be incredibly beneficial. This may be the second easiest way to present a live tour. We had somebody go into a gallery during an exhibition and just do pans of the space. And then by sharing that content, you can get a little bit more dynamic presentation than just sharing your still images. And this could even be captured on a cell phone, for example, if you don't have access to a higher quality digital camera. So again, keep in mind as we go into these advanced tour assets that even if you don't have some of these yet, you can utilize whatever assets you have available to you, and incorporating these aspects will create a more dynamic tour. The first example of a 3D tour that I'm going to show you was done by a professional company who worked with us, Direct Dimensions, and I believe they'll be sharing that information for Direct Dimensions in the chat now. They came in, they did a 360 tour of a exhibition, and I'm able to share that during a live tour to create a dynamic presentation. Here we are back entering into the Peale building. This is a Google 360 Street View tour. This costs us about $600 for somebody to come in and document all the spaces. This lives on our website, and while giving a virtual tour, I can simply open the page on the website, share my screen, and allow people to move around the space with me. What you're about to see is an example of a 360 video. This lives on YouTube, and this is a durational video. It's just a minute long. It's actually playing a video, but I'm able to move around it using YouTube's 360 viewer. This is another asset that you might consider that can be done for a fairly low cost. There's also many people out there who offer similar 360 tours using Matterport and other technology. Also, during the pandemic, we launched the virtual Peale in Second Life. We partnered with Linden Labs and Virtual Ability to create a replica of the Peale. And during a virtual tour, I can open up Second Life, I can go to the Peale, and I can use our virtual Peale to take people into the virtual building to support our tour efforts. I will let you know if you're considering this is a much bigger lift. Here we are at a exhibition that we have on display at the Virtual Peale. This is a much bigger lift than a 360 video, but the advantage of having assets like these or any of the others I've discussed is that they're also accessible at any time for your online museum visitors. I also want to mention another type of asset you can use, and that is pre-existing assets. There is out of UMBC, the Image Resource Center, University of Maryland, Baltimore County, and on their own, prior to the existence of the new Peale, they created this website, which is Visualizing Early Baltimore, and I believe that link is being put into the chat as well. And what they created was a view of Baltimore in the year 1816, which would have just been 2 years after the Peale opened. And I'm simply here navigating their website, and we're very fortunate because the Peale is a button on their website. But utilizing this pre-existing resource that was created by a third party is another asset that we can use to enhance our virtual tours. So those are just some examples of sort of the simple and the advanced methods or assets that you can use to present virtual tours. And now we're going to shift our focus to managing your content. We have already talked about in session one, utilizing your Zoom, and I'll talk about this a little bit more, or Streamyard to manage your content. I do want to mention that the greatest asset you can use to manage your content is analog. You have to look over the screen here, but this is my run of show for today's presentation. It lets me know what's coming up in the video. It lets me know when I need to pause. And so once again, as I said in the first session, treating your live virtual events as performances and creating a run of show and a flow doesn't just have to be your script and what you're going to say, but it can also remind you of how you need to move through your content during your presentation. Here I'm pulling up a folder on my desktop. This one is called Peale Tour Museum Hub. And I 100% recommend when you are managing your assets to create a new folder on your desktop for all of your content. This will also make it much easier when you do another presentation to locate and identify all of your content. I'm just going to quickly go over how you might manage your content in Zoom. You might remember last time I talked about how to use virtual backgrounds, and you see me on the right scrolling through all of the images and media that I have loaded into Zoom. And so this is a really effective and simple tool to manage a background, meaning you would appear in front of it. And I also mentioned in the first presentation how in Zoom you can now choose to use a PowerPoint presentation to overlay yourself on top of. Of course, we've all seen or shared our own PowerPoints during various Zoom meetings, so you know how you can share your content that way. You are also able to share your content directly if you're using Streamyard, as we talked about in the first session. You can upload video files and manage your content in that way. You'll hear me at several points during today's presentation say if you could start the red presentation or the green presentation. Since these are video clips, I started them with little color-coded segments. That way, for the person who is running today's presentation, I can very easily tell them to end the red presentation and start the green presentation, which I am requesting right now. So if you want to end the red and start the green, we will continue on from there. Now, in a moment, I'm going to talk about utilizing technology to manage your content. But before we do, I thought we could all take a moment to take a deep breath. And again, I want to reiterate that a virtual tour can use whatever content you have available to you, and it can grow and build over time as you continue to add new assets to your collection. Now, what you're going to see here in a moment is a television production studio. This is what it used to take to manage content from many sources, although obviously that is not available to me. And so where I have landed after many months of research is to utilize the program that you currently see on your screen, which is known as Manycam. And I believe a link to Manycam is being put in the chat right now. Manycam is a virtual production studio that allows for live mixing of content. I'm going to give you a little rundown of what you see from the back end. So this is what I see. I have preloaded all of my content into the bottom here. And as I hover over each piece of media, all I need to do is click the button that says transition or cut, and it will move along to the series of images that I have loaded into Manycam. And so this is a much easier way to control the content. If you have guest speakers, for example, you might not know exactly what they're going to say when, and so you can have all of your content at hand and ready to go. Here I'm showing you how simple it is to add content. I simply right-click and click Add Media and choose a new piece of media that I want to add to my desktop. This allows me, if I need to work in real time. If somebody mentions something that I don't have preloaded, I can pull it up in real time and be able to show that. I'm pulling up here a video from the Escapement Time Travel Agency that was installed at the Peale, and so I'm able to control that video. I'm showing you an example here. I can pause, I can rewind, I can restart the content. So I'm in total control over what it is that participants in the virtual tour or live event are able to see. I'm going to add one more piece of media here, just so you can see that again. You'll see it appear in the bottom of the screen, and this is just a close-up of the back of our time machine over here. Now, in just a moment, I'm going to move into the front end view. I've been showing you what it looks like from the back end. In other words, I've been showing you what it is that I see. But I do want to give you a little glimpse as to what the public sees. I guess we're going to stay here for just one more second, and I'm going to show you a few other of the back-end features. You can control the sound. So if you want to adjust the sound coming from your computer or from your microphone. Here I am pretending to be a weathercaster and drawing circles on the screen in case there's anything that I wish to highlight. That's the circle tool. I also have the standard webcaster tool where I can just draw on the screen, a lot less clean, but perhaps a little bit more fun. I'm going to change my image here and circle something else. So this is a feature that is not available on any other platform that I've been able to locate, and it's been a really nice way to be able to highlight specific parts of specific pictures. I'm showing you here that you can change the size of the circle to be able to draw more clearly. There's a bunch of features that I'm clicking through now all the way on the right that I do not use. This is one that I've never used, but I did want to show you. This is a clock feature that can either go forwards or backwards. You can change the time. You can choose whether it's a countdown or whether it's counting forward. I've yet to come up with any specific use case for this, but it might excite some of you as a possibility. This next feature is something that I do use quite often. You will recognize that it is something that is similarly available if you are using Streamyard directly, and it's what's called a lower third. So as I introduce guests, or in this case myself, I'm able to pull up my name and my title. So this is a built-in feature of Manycam. And here I am, I was just a few seconds behind jumping into the front end view. And so the public doesn't see any of that. They only see me moving through the content itself. So it's a really clean way to be able to handle the content. And what the public sees is only the cut or the fade from one piece of content to another. Again, another view of the time travel agency here outside of the view we were previously in. So I've jumped back to the back end view just to show you where we are. It is also possible in the back end view to add your self to the video, as I'm doing here. Perhaps at the end, if we have time, I can show you what that looks like live. There's another great feature which I've yet to also locate anywhere on any other platform, which is picture-in-picture. So I can add myself as a small picture inside of a frame. I can make it bigger or larger, or move it around to various locations, which could be used for accessibility features, or could be used here's the front end view of that. If I wanted to have a video playing and have me secondary but small on top of it. This was all pre-recorded, which is why you don't see me talking in that specific video. And here I am once again showing you the front end view of how the content is displayed. I showed you what the tour video looked like playing from our website. I want to show you now what that would look like being shared in Manycam. So here I am sharing the video tour from our website, panning around on the website itself, but sharing that screen to Manycam. And if you look down in the bottom left, the second thumbnail from the left, you'll see that that is where this view lies. And once I arrive at a specific piece of art, I can transfer over and show you the individual close-up of that piece of art. And now we're going to flip back to the front end view and show you what this would look like if you were simply watching this tour. And you can see it fills the entirety of the screen. And if we use a similar setup like this, I would be on the left talking, giving a live tour, while our ASL interpreter was providing those services. Now, we talked last week about how Streamyard can be used to broadcast to a variety of sources. Manycam can also be used to broadcast to a variety of sources. It can easily integrate into Facebook, YouTube, Twitch. It can also send to a custom server and connect to a wide variety of other platforms. And it is a multi-streaming platform, meaning it can go to many at once, which is another advantage over Zoom. I have been comparing this platform. Here's just a listing of other technologies that Manycam integrates with. Now, I have been talking about how this technology compares to Zoom, but I also want to show you how this technology can integrate with Zoom. So here I am in Zoom, and I'm just going to rewind for a second so I can show you what I've done here. And what you're about to see is me in Zoom changing my camera. So currently in Zoom, my camera is set to the HD user-facing camera, but I'm about to switch it to the Manycam virtual camera. And this is really the secret to how Manycam works. It tricks your computer or the platform that you're using, be it Zoom or Microsoft Teams or StreamYard or any other platform, into thinking that the data that is coming out of Manycam is in fact your webcam. So you'll see in just a moment when I hit play again that I'm going to change this over to the Manycam, and it just takes over my screen, which means that if I'm using this for a Zoom presentation, I'm not sharing my screen. It simply replaced me, the presenter view, with the content that is coming out of Manycam. And so the host, or if you are the host, could pin this, and that way everyone would see this as the primary piece of content. Now, this is a really important point because although many virtual tours or events that we host may be proprietary, meaning we may be the hosts, oftentimes as a museum, we get calls to see if we can give a virtual tour for another organization, at which point we are joining their Zoom meeting. And so the ability to have the level of control I want, even if I don't have the ability to use Streamyard, is of great value. And once again, we are achieving that goal by tricking Zoom into thinking that what the information coming out of Manycam is in fact my webcam. And here I am switching it back to my webcam itself and giving you another glimpse of what that looks like from the back end. I'm going to take another deep breath here, and we will jump along to there. If you want to end this presentation. All right, I'm going to attempt now live for you all to change my camera to the Manycam camera to give you a live example of what it is that I'm talking about. So here in Manycam, I'm changing my camera to the, here in Streamyard, I'm changing my camera to the Manycam camera. And although it looks like it did just a moment ago, now anything that I do in Manycam is being broadcast to you all as if I am the actual presenter. All right, and I'm going to pull myself back up from Manycam here and add my self back in. I'm going to go back to this camera. If you go to add me back in, thank you so much. Sorry, I'm not sure what happened there. And so it will replace you in whatever platform you're using. Whether you're using Zoom, this is also a great tool if you're using Facebook Live, so that you can trick Facebook Live into thinking that what is coming out of Manycam is the same as your webcam, which allows you to use any platform that utilizes a webcam can then integrate with Manycam itself. All right, I just want to take another deep breath and review with you all a couple things. Most importantly, if you are able to create pre-existing, pre-recorded content, you can utilize Zoom, you can utilize Manycam, you can utilize your own webcam to edit together specific segments. You can create a presentation like the one I gave you today. That might be the easiest way to present a virtual tour or a virtual program. Now, I will caution once again that when I say the easiest way, it is definitely not the least time-consuming way. I found that it takes about 3 times longer to edit together your content than it would be to present it live. But what you end up with is a program that is completely pre-recorded and completely as you want it to be. And you are able to utilize pre-recorded sound, or as I've been doing today, you are able to talk over it to provide a live tour. I will also let you know that we have on occasion utilized a pre-recorded live tour, turned off the volume, and just talked live over it. So if you present one live tour and you're very happy with the production quality, you are able to take that video, share that video as pre-existing content, and like we've been doing today, have yourself on the screen talking live next to it. And that is a really effective way to utilize a live recorded tour, but still have those live aspects integrated into it. Excuse me. If you are able to develop a suite of assets to support your live tour, whether it be video or pans of still photographs or pans of video or even walkthrough of your museum, you might find that utilizing that type of content will give you a little bit more stability than trying to do a live walkthrough of your museum. I know in the Peale building itself, because it is so old, that various rooms have much better internet than the other. And so although we have successfully on occasion presented live tours where the tour guide was live in the building to avoid internet connectivity issues. We will often pre-record these segments on a cell phone or on a camera or even on a laptop itself. And then we can replay that content as pre-recorded content. If you have enough content, or if you feel comfortable tackling Manycam, which I will say is not as much of a heavy lift as it may look like from the front end, then you can preload all of your content and be a little bit more fluid in your presentations. The reason that I like a tool like Manycam is that I don't have to remain on script as much as I would during a presentation such as this. When you are talking over a pre-recorded video, there's a chance that you will talk too long or forget where you're going next, as you saw at the beginning of the presentation. But if you are, but if it is being shared through Manycam, if you are able to pull up content based on what is being talked about as opposed to talking over pre-recorded content. All right, I'm now at 2:35. I have a little bit more I can share, and I would like to be able to show you a little bit more of Manycam, but I did get a second piece of feedback, which was last week people desired more time for questions. So what I would like to do now is open it up for questions, and if we have time after the questions, I can come back and show you a little bit more. Once again, today is not designed to be a full-fledged teach-in session of how to use this technology, but rather an overview of the different types of media that you might consider using and the overview of the available technologies that you might use to manage those assets. So I'm going to see if Dan wants to come back in and hit me with some questions. And if we have time, then we will show you a few more examples, but if we don't have time, I'd rather have as much time as possible to be able to have feedback and questions from those who are joining me here today. And hopefully I've talked a little bit slower than I did last time.
No, you did fine. Yeah, just a reminder to everybody, if you have questions, drop them into the chat, whatever platform you're using, and we'll assemble them and feed them to David. In the meantime, David, you kind of blew my mind here with Manycam, and it's a little bit meta, and I want to just really understand and help our audience understand exactly what it's used for. So it's not as though you're using video editing software to assemble your content and then present the recorded video on this. This offers you some flexibility and improvisational capability, right? So that you can pull things as needed as people are perhaps asking questions. You can mix and match.
That's the perfect, you brought up the two perfect examples. So, I mean, one of the ways to handle something like this, as I mentioned, is to edit a piece together. Manycam, I would consider to be a live production studio, which is why I started with that picture of the TV production studio, because it's a way of having all of your assets at hand to be able to pull up at any time during the presentation. Now, obviously, with any presentation, you know the general flow that it's going to go. You have 24 spots for media within Manycam, which could be 24 pictures or 24 videos or any combination thereof. That said, on presentations where I had more content, once I got through the first 24, I swapped out an earlier one for a new one so that I was able to keep going beyond the 24. But it's a way of doing live video mixing. So it's a way of seamlessly moving from content in a live fashion. So that is exactly correct. I do want to give one tip before I forget it, because I meant to say it during the presentation, which is I typically, if I'm sharing a lot of the virtual tour content, whether it be a 360 video or a Matterport scan or a Google Street View video, I open all of those in a single web viewer. And then in Manycam, I just tell it to share that one browser, and then I'm using the browser and tabs in the browser to move between it. And so that way I'm not overloading Manycam with telling it to go to 8 different browser windows. I just tell it to go to one window, and then I control the content from the browser window, if that makes sense.
Okay. So in terms of Manycam, this is clearly an important tool for you. Is this part of a genre of tools that there are competitors to this, or is this pretty much the only thing? And then how do you access? Is it a free program, or does it cost? Does it have a monthly charge?
Yeah, I have yet to be able to find anything that has the same level of control that Manycam offers, which is why I landed on there. I don't represent Manycam. This is not a formal endorsement of Manycam. This is only where I've landed. I'm certain that there are probably higher end products out there that would let you do similar things, but Manycam I found to be incredibly intuitive and easy to use, which is why I've settled on it as the right platform for certain scenarios. Like most things, there is a free version. If you want to unlock all of the features, there is a subscription. I will tell you that since the pandemic started, the subscription has dropped almost to half price. It could be now down to somewhere around $100 a year. Which if you do 10 virtual presentations in a year is $10 per presentation. So ultimately, it's pretty affordable for the allowances that it offers for managing that content.
Okay, so switching gears a little, you mentioned sort of the live tour of a person in a gallery. So I think, what I'm thinking of is like the typical docent tour or something. People gather at the museum and they get it and go in there and they're led around a gallery by a docent. Or another example would be, say, an exhibit opening, where very frequently you've got a bunch of people there and there's a...
Oops, Dan froze for me. Oh, you froze. I'm sorry, Dan, you froze for 1 second. Can you repeat? You said there's a curator there and then you cut out.
Yeah, so like the live opening of an exhibit, where you have a docent talking to people and explaining their take on the exhibit that's there. I know some folks in museums have replicated that experience to some degree. They've had a video cam or an iPhone or whatever. They've had lavalier mics. You did mention that there's a liability of maybe not enough internet connection depending on your house. But what's the difference between sort of that experience and trying to replicate that virtually, where you've got the curator doing something and perhaps interacting with the audience, and doing the Manycam setup, which is more...
So I'll pull from an example that we recently did, which was a tour of a exhibition where we had the curator on site moving throughout the building. But we also had the artist, since we were still in COVID and we weren't gathering together at all, we had the artist at home remotely. And so it sort of looked similar to this setup. And so we had one person in the building by themselves with the camera, moving around the building and showing different spaces. We had the artist at home who was able to provide feedback. I still, in that case, utilize Manycam because the experience you get when you are at a live tour, whether it's docent-led or curator-led, is the ability to lean in and look at a picture. Whereas somebody walking around with an iPad or a computer or their phone, they might not get the steadiest view or the widest view of a particular piece of artwork. And so in that scenario, I still was feeding them through Manycam, and I had the individual artworks loaded in so that as they arrived at a piece, I was then able to go to the approved photograph and give a solid, steady shot of the artwork that they were talking about. Mm-hmm. So I've still integrated, even when we had a live person walking around a physical building, I've still integrated Manycam to be able to show detail shots or wide shots of specific pieces of artwork. Now, I did say 2 weeks ago that I was going to talk about hybrid events. And so I do want to mention that shortly, because this could be a really good time. As I think we've all learned during the pandemic, that the ability to offer virtual tours has allowed us to reach entirely new audiences around the entire world. So we're no longer limited to audiences who are able to join us within a physical space. And so I have been doing a lot of thinking, although I will confess that I've not yet executed it because we have not yet gathered in person, about how we will do a live tour with physical people in the building and simulcast that out into the world for a simulcast virtual tour. And I think that for all of our events, I'm not sure we will ever go back to just doing live live events or we'll not go back to just doing live events, and I will do my absolute best moving forward for all live events to also be broadcasting those out simultaneously. Now, I mentioned internet quality, and I think this is a really important thing to note, whether we are at home giving presentations or whether we are in our museums. Our connectivity is essential to the success of those programs. So something for us and for other museums to consider if internet is not great is recording a live tour and then thinking about that as pre-existing content and then broadcasting that out at a later date. So if you're not able to do a full walking tour because of connectivity issues, you may consider recording a tour and maybe doing a live tour one week and then a broadcast of the live tour the following week. But I think for all of us, it's really important to think about anything in person, being sure that we've captured digital assets that can be either shared live or shared at a future date.
So can you talk for a minute about copywriting and issues about perhaps even cybersecurity and the like with the content that you're providing? Presumably stuff in your museum, it's yours to use and so forth, but there are issues potentially with that even, in terms of just the content, especially with the traveling exhibition that's there or whatever. How do you deal with that? And is like Creative Commons a source for more generic content that you can bring in? What are some of the tips that you have for that?
Sure. Well, we're very fortunate to have really great partners who have provided us high quality digital assets that we use when we're sharing still pictures. It is known for any artist that comes through for a traveling exhibit that we have been doing a virtual component to their program, and so they agree that we will be able to showcase their material outwardly. For example, like the early Baltimore website where I talked about sharing pre-existing content. UMBC is aware that we utilize that content, and as an educational organization are happy for that content to be utilized. But I think if it is obviously not legal to share film that you do not have permission to share. Any content that you're sharing, you do want to make sure that it is either out of copyright, which for us is we are fortunate for, because a lot of the Peale history has taken place prior to 1926, which I believe is the cutoff. It might be 1920 for things to be copyright free. So we do have a lot of copyright free material, but also from our visitors or our friends or our collaborators who come through and they take pictures. We always ask if they share them with us at that time, if they would be okay with us sharing those. And so we have an ever-growing library of digital assets that have been visitor or collaborator generated. So I think it is, depending on the type of content you're sharing, obviously you'll need to investigate the legalities of it. But for us, at least, it has not been a problem or a major consideration. One consideration that I think is important, for example, we did a live broadcast of a film. So we had the film playing here, we had the ASL interpreter, and at the end of the film, we had a Q&A with the filmmaker. But that filmmaker requested that the recording not be made available publicly, that it was a one-time shot for people to see it. And even though it is available, even though it is archived on our YouTube page, it is set to private so no one can see it. So I think that is a conversation with every content generator to make sure that you have the right permissions that you need in order to represent them out in the digital world.
So in terms of hybrid events, I'm foreseeing a time, and I think this has already been done to some degree, which is you have a virtual event that's being produced by the museum, and then you have sort of home viewing parties, so to speak. You have other sort of distance learning types of model where you've got a group of people that are watching the content and then interacting, different nodes interacting together. Is this like Manycam and the like able to sort of handle all of those different components? So you perhaps have a live, feed from, I'm in Arlington, Massachusetts, and you're in Baltimore and whatever, and we're all sort of interacting together,
Yeah.
your content.
Sure. So Manycam, like for example, if it depends on what platform you're going to use for that. If you're using Manycam is not a viewing platform; it's a broadcasting platform. So that what you're describing as a viewing party, you could utilize Manycam to broadcast to Zoom, for example, but you would have to use another piece of technology to actually host the viewing party itself. Um, and so. Depending on the size of the viewing party, you could theoretically use StreamYard, but Zoom
Mhm.
might be better for that. There's a few other technologies that we're exploring. There's a program called Their Story, which is more about story collection, but has a nice display for multiple people on the screen at once, and you can share a piece of content. So Manycam isn't the solution to be able to host a viewing party. And if you're hosting a viewing party, but you're just playing a film or something, you don't even need Manycam.
Mhm.
Manycam is not something I utilize for every live presentation we do, because, for example, for something like this, I don't need Manycam at all. I'm just using StreamYard and I'm sharing my pre-existing video clip. So Manycam is a great solution for live tours specifically, but it's not the solution that I use if I'm doing a film screening or if I'm doing just a group hangout or if I'm playing a pre-recorded conversation.
Mhm. What other departments of the museum is this germane to? We had a question in the chat asking specifically, have museum shops used technology to provide like artisan talks or demos or author readings, that kind of thing, or shopping type of thing? Does this have an application beyond just simply the docent tour kind of a thing?
Sure, sure. Yeah, we've never used it in a sort of retail component. But again, Manycam is a great solution if you need to manage a whole bunch of content. So if your artisan wanted to be on screen and talk about their products, but they wanted to be able to show specific close-ups at various times, then you could get those images from them in advance. And when they raised when they said, oh, and I make these bags, then to pull up the picture of the bags and show that. So it would be a great resource um, to explore something like that if you had a bunch of content that you needed to be able to manage smoothly during any type of presentation with any specific goal.
Hmm. You could effectively do the same thing though in StreamYard without Manycam, right? As long as it was more we're presenting this and not a lot of interaction with the audience.
Sure. Yeah. The trick with StreamYard, I would say, is it's not easy to say load 15 pictures into StreamYard and move through them fluidly. It's easy, as we're doing here today, to load a video in or to share a slideshow. So if you're sharing a single piece of media, StreamYard is a great solution. If you're trying to manage many pieces of media live, then Manycam is the only solution that I've come up with that allows me to achieve that. But you're totally right. Some of the features, such as the lower thirds when people are introduced or sharing a specific video or sharing a PowerPoint, could absolutely be done just through StreamYard. But if you want that ability to move through content live based on what's being said or talked about at any given moment, you need one other piece of technology layered on top of that.
Got it. Got it. So you can still use StreamYard to broadcast it, but you have a lot more flexibility on the back end to create the content.
For sure. Yeah. And I mean, I was experimenting earlier, and what I was experimenting with was being both on screen talking, um, but also sharing my presentation from Manycam. And so you can do that with Manycam if it seems right. I do think that I think that StreamYard offers some things that Manycam doesn't in terms of ease of control of placement of speakers and such. And so really, and what we've done today, which is sort of even though I faked it with the pre-recorded videos, I could have done everything I was doing through Manycam, in which case the combination of Manycam and StreamYard is really effective. Manycam is always going to require, or in most cases, require that secondary piece of technology to create this type of conversation. But again, I'll mention from StreamYard, I can just broadcast directly to Facebook or directly to YouTube if I wanted to, if the way I was able to manage content in Manycam was suitable to the type of presentation I was trying to put out.
So being mindful
Oh, froze again, Dan.
Am I cutting out here, David?
Yeah, you cut out, but you're back now, I believe.
Okay. So do you want to continue with some kind of content part of your presentation, or you want to just keep going with our Q&A?
I just want to give you a quick insight since we're talking about it now. I just want to show you here, and perhaps our technical host for the day, I believe Avery, if you want to make my screen bigger here for a second, if you could. Oop, you don't need to take Dan out, but if you could make me bigger, is that an option? And if not, it's okay. But I would love to have Dan back in if possible. Perfect. Okay, we don't need to worry about it, but I just wanted to, yep, perfect. There you go. So I just wanted to show you, and sorry our interpreters moved to the right for a second. This is a function of Streamyard, but I just wanted to show you what it would look like in Streamyard, just so you can understand what I'm saying. So I've now replaced my web camera with Manycam, and now as I'm working in Manycam, I'm able to just replace the screen that was previously showing me with this content coming out of Manycam. So you can imagine I'm giving a tour. I'm talking about the time that the building was City Hall, and I can bring that on. And I can also bring myself into the video here, or I can add a new layer to this and add myself to here. So I just wanted to show you what this looks like if you were incorporating Streamyard and Manycam, which is just it's just a different way of thinking about it. But since I was showing you all pre-recorded video, you didn't fully get to experience what it's like to take over your web camera. So that's really the last thing I wanted to show.
And we're here too, still.
And right? You're here too. Yep.
Yeah, that's cool. All right, I got it.
So I'm going to switch back to my unless anybody wants to see anything specific in Manycam, I'm just going to switch back here. I'm still utilizing, and you can switch back to the 3 shared screens if you want, Avery. I'm still running out of Manycam at this moment. So if anybody has any questions or wanted to see another example of a lower third or anything that I've talked about today, I'm happy to show you now. Otherwise, we can keep taking questions for the next 4 minutes that we have here.
Yeah, so I think I'm looking at a couple of questions on the chat that are really kind of not so much the technology, but the project management and basically teaching people on their staff how to use this. And so the one question is like, how seems complex. Is it something that's, once you get the hang of it, it's pretty good? And then how do you, especially if you've got a small staff that's nobody's assigned as like our technology person, how do you, sort of loop people into the production mix so that it's not just, say, one person that's responsible for all of these things you can sort of train up and the like?
Sure.
Tutorials and the like?
Yeah. So for the most part, I find Manycam to be incredibly intuitive. It is literally right-clicking to add content from your computer. So it could take about 5 or 10 minutes to add 24 pictures or to link it to a website. And really, aside from the lower thirds, which I'll just show you again, it's going to display with the it's going to display underneath the title that we have here coming from Streamyard. But that's really the main feature that I use. And so for the most part, let me see if I can share this. Let's see if this will work. Manycam. Okay. Hopefully you can see. If you could add, Avery, the Manycam shared screen in now, if that's possible. There you go. So for the most part, when you are actually running a presentation, once your content is added here at the bottom during the presentation, all you're doing is clicking on what you want to add into the presentation. And as you can see, there's the 24 spots. I don't have them all filled right now. But the actual production of a live event is the easiest part of it. The work is done in setting up the live event, is done in and let me go back here and hopefully this doesn't. There you go. The major work is done in finding the content and managing the content and adding the content in, which is done prior to the event. But the actual management of the event is literally as simple as clicking on whatever it is you want to be seen at any given time. So I think like any new technology, it requires, you can take me out of you can take the Manycam screen out, Avery. Thank you. I think like any new technology, it requires a little practice and integration, but just like Streamyard and everybody who's been working in Streamyard for this project has discovered, it's actually quite intuitive, and it's really simple. And I think that that is, the biggest thing that's attracted me to these two platforms is that even though I have some experience in video editing and a little bit of production, is that none of these require any of that experience. It really is as simple as clicking what it is you want to be seen. And so the work comes in determining what those things are and putting them in place so that it's really easy to click and manage your live event.
All right. Well, that's terrific. I think we're out of time. I think the thought, yeah, really, this is a lot. And I think I was just going to segue into pointing out that this is now the Museum Learning Hub Community Forum is really going to be the place to continue to dive in and explore. And, we'll be there, all the team members, and I'm bringing in David in case there are some other questions, perhaps, that kind of thing, just to help answer some of these details. Because the deeper we go into the technical trainings, they get a little bit more murky and whatever, and people might need a little more help. So anyway, be thinking about logging in to the community forum aspect.
And I'll just add one thing, Dan, and I know we're out of time, but Manycam and Streamyard have great help pages with really detailed information, which is how I learned this. Once again, I've learned all of these things in 15 months, and I learned them through watching their videos and looking over their training. So if you do have basic questions, there's a lot of really great resources already out there.
All right. Well, thank you so much, David, for
helping
us out today. It was really terrific. So before I go, I have a couple of final housekeeping items. If you missed any of this session or just want to watch it again, you can access the recording on the Museum Learning Hub website, which is, once again, museum-hub.org, under the Recent Webinars tab at the top of the page. Also, to remind you to please complete the post-event survey that's been in the chat stream, and those of you who pre-registered will receive it via email as well. Visit the forum, as I mentioned, on the Museum Learning Hub website. And then finally, please join us on Tuesday, June 8th, which is our next time together, when we move on to Module 3, Managing Digitization Projects. Thanks, everybody, for attending today's workshop. May you be safe, may you be well, and have a superior day. Thank you.